schools, you
Right.
know, all of that.
Yeah.
But they're going out, like she said, they're going out to the Catholic schools, and they're going to start doing inspections. Did she say Monday, Wednesday, Friday? That's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And hey, look at that! Wow. Mention the Catholic schools, and look who
What a
shows up
segue.
in the Zoom room. Dr. Juan Flores, Catholic School Superintendent. Good morning, Juan.
It's on mute.
Good morning.
Half a day.
So if they're coming out to inspect, I'll warn the schools. But actually, one of the reasons I wanted to come on was to let folks know that I've been to almost all the schools, watching little 2-year-olds, you know, walking 6 feet behind each other, or kids in classrooms with their masks on and teachers behind sneeze guards. It looks pretty good. I think the students are practicing social distancing, wearing their masks. If not, then they're being reminded. And I think that was the important thing.
Right.
I have not met, this whole week, I haven't met one student who said he or she was not happy to be back in school.
Right.
So that's a very encouraging thing for the kids.
So I know that you guys had talked about when you open up the face-to-face right away after the first couple of days, there were a lot of parents who wanted, I want to get my kids in now. So have you guys kind of reconciled that waiting list, and are there any issues with class sizes if so many people want their kids to go back to face-to-face?
You know, with the exception of the high schools, almost all of the schools already reduced their enrollments to accommodate the right number of students in each school. So if you went to a school, an elementary school right now, there might be 14 kids in the classroom and 1 or 2 are at home, and they're on Google Meet or on Zoom. In some cases, there may be more. You know, in some cases, if they had 2 sections of one grade, one section is just for those who are back on campus. The other section is for all the kids who are online, if there are that many kids who are not coming back. But yeah, for a couple of weeks, more families are bringing their kids back to school, but we already counted those kids when we dealt with enrollment. And much of that was set up last August. You remember we had, for most schools, at least a week of face-to-face instruction already. So, you know, the schools knew what to expect.
So in your, I guess, inspections or visits to all of the Catholic schools, was there any issues that you saw needed to be addressed, or did everybody get, flying grades?
Yeah, so one of the things that I did was I just reviewed the school's guidelines, the ones we turned into public health. We're still waiting to get an acknowledgement that those guidelines are okay, but we followed what public health suggested to us. Most of those guidelines are all being followed. And in some cases, they're easy to follow because they just follow the normal flow. For some schools, the kids have to remember which stairway is up and which stairway comes down, so that they're not running into each other. But I think they're doing well. And I think the hardest part, I was at one school where the teacher was teaching the kids to spread their arms and make sure that their arms never touch somebody else when the other kids' arms are also spread out. So I think for the smaller kids, especially the younger kids, it's an adjustment because they're glad to be back, but they know they can't play and they can't interact like they used to.
Has there been any issues, I guess, with like transportation or anything like that? Everything's.
I haven't heard of any, but I did hear from a couple of principals that some of the students who initially said they wanted to use bus transportation have opted not to. So I'll spend next week getting reports from the schools and then working with Vince Areola to make sure that those operations are going well.
Mm-hmm. I know when we spoke, I know Chris spoke to you, was it a couple weeks ago, but when I spoke to you before, we were talking about procurement because of the funding that, private schools get from GDOE that I guess kind of administers the federal funds. Has all of that been sorted out Have you got all of the stuff that you guys, put in your request for?
Sabrina, unfortunately, no. There are 3 items that we were specifically hoping to get processed quickly before kids came back or soon after kids came back. Sneeze guards for every desk for all the elementary schools, sneeze guards for the cafeterias for the high schools, and then HEPA filters for all the classrooms. We just got word yesterday, after a month, the quotations went in a month ago, and we just got word yesterday that the purchase order for the HEPA filters have now been released. We're looking into make sure the specifications that we asked for are being followed in the purchase order. So I've let Mr. Fernandez know that I'm really disappointed. I don't know what it's going to take to get the process to go quicker, but when the health and well-being of the students is at stake and it continues to drag on, I think there needs to be some change in the system. And we are in an emergency situation. I'm not saying we ought to just ignore procurement laws, but as I've said before, somebody's got to start losing sleep to make sure things are done more quickly. A lot of it is being done electronically. In the old days, when I was at DOE, if you needed to get something done quickly, you literally had to walk from office to office or drive from office to office. Now, most of it is done electronically. So I'm not sure I understand why those reviews and those processes are not being taken care of more quickly.
Right.
But I get nice, polite responses when I ask almost every week. But it's really tough for me because I've got to go back to the principals and the teachers and explain to them that, the process is not in our hands. Mm-hmm. And so we're at the mercy of DOE's efforts.
Could be a part of the reason why also is because these products are not here. They can't be purchased locally.
Well, that is part of the problem. The thing is, if it takes 4 weeks just to get to the point where a purchase order is going to be produced, the vendor, I know when the vendor turned in a quotation, the vendor said it would take 30 to 45 days to get the equipment here. Mm-hmm. Or another vendor said it's going to take about 30 days just to produce the sneeze guards. Mm-hmm. So we looked into that and we worried that we were already behind the 8 ball when the requisitions went in. The problem is now we've added 4 weeks to that process. Yeah. This is not in the hands of the vendors. We know that they're up against having to bring things in, but I just think that something needs to change in that process. Mm-hmm. I've asked Mr. Fernandez if we need to go to the governor to find out if another government agency can help with the procurement process, right? Because it is problematic.
Well, the superintendent, I want to say he does meet quite frequently with the lieutenant governor. Do private schools kind of get that same courtesy?
I've been meeting with the lieutenant governor every week. We've had a couple times when we've had to cancel. Mm-hmm. But yeah, and probably more importantly, I've been meeting also with Stephanie Flores from the Clearinghouse office. And she's very responsive. And I don't want to bash DOE completely because we've been getting a lot of support from the federal programs office, even if it means that support is in the form of clarifying our requisitions or getting us to dot our I's and cross our T's to do things correctly. But they've been very good about responding as quickly as possible. So now it's down to the procurement office, to the business office to get things done. And I got to tell you, it's really disappointing. So I don't know if the lieutenant governor's office or the lieutenant governor himself can do something about that process. But I did send word to Stephanie this morning, and she has already responded early this morning about, part of the second round of funding for the CARES Act calls for assistance for non-public schools, direct assistance for non-public schools. I'm not sure if Guam qualifies for that because when I looked at only 4 states so far have applied for that. funding, and the deadline is February 8th. But when I looked at the list of all the states and territories, Guam was not included. Puerto Rico was the only non-state to be listed on that list. So I don't know if we don't qualify. I didn't see the full text of the legislation.
Well, you're a former superintendent of the Guam Department of
I was?
Education.
Or I am?
Yeah, you. I mean, what would you do if you were in charge to kind of resolve this and move this along quicker?
I think that one of the things that needs to happen is that maybe there isn't enough staff, but because of what's going on, there are some staff members who could be freed up, who have the knowledge and skills or can be trained very quickly to help with the processes. And again, because most of these processes are electronic, these folks don't have to physically be in the office together. So that's what I would do. That's the first thing I would do. And you know, the bottom line is everybody's got to pay attention to what's best for the health and well-being of the students. And that includes those in the non-public schools. Now, some of the schools, and you know this, Rena, some of the schools have taken matters into their own hands, and they've spent money on buying their own filters. They've spent money buying their own sneeze guards. And that's great that they have those resources. The thing that bothers me is when the Catholic schools having limited resources, that's taking money away from what could be academic resources that the schools could be using. Mm-hmm. But because they're prioritizing health and well-being, their boards or their finance councils have chosen to make those decisions.
And public schools, they're 1 day a week face-to-face as opposed to private schools, it's 5 days a week? Is that correct?
I don't know if it's just 1 day a week, but I know it's very limited. Mm-hmm. I mean, I asked a teacher the other day why, if there are only 25% of the kids coming to face-to-face, why don't they just assign 25% of the teachers and have those kids come to school every day? I mean, one of the things that we're seeing in the Catholic schools is because the kids are there every day, they're getting used to the routine. That coming to school is and following the protocols is no longer a novelty. It's the way we do things now. And I think that helps. But also the expectation is the teachers have to be on top of what's going on with the students. So, I mean, I've talked with some of the principals, with most of the principals now, about what are we doing to make sure that we're going to help the students catch up before the end of the school year so that they're going to be ready for the next grade, because that's a critical issue. We're trying to set up some activities after school, which is part of our CARES Act funding. We might do it maybe even on Saturdays, but to give those kids a fighting chance to get to the point where they're going to be ready for school next year.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Juan. I mean, I know for a fact that at the school that my son attends, man, that our principal is on it. He's out there every morning. Every time I pick up my son, he's out there. He's helping with traffic, with temperature checks, everything. So,
one of the reasons I told Mr. Crisostomo yesterday, one of the reasons I was visiting schools, even without letting them know, is when parents ask me what's really going on in the schools, if I see the social distancing, if I see the kids wearing their masks, if I see them washing their hands in the new sinks that they have, I could tell the parents that they're really following the guidelines that they put on paper. Because that's an important thing. We've got to have some, credibility. Ronald Reagan says that trust is great, but you got to have verification. And it's easy for the principals to say they're following things. I want to support them by actually going and seeing what they're doing and making sure that if they need something, and we're gearing up for a next round of funding, and I'm asking the principals to identify those things. They're going to keep our kids safe first, but then also advance the teaching and learning in the classrooms because of the pandemic.
Well, before we let you go, I wanted to give you the opportunity to discuss or say anything about Catholic Schools Week.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Before we let you go, just wanted to give you the opportunity to say what you wanted to say because it is Catholic Schools Week.
That's right. Even though really every week in the Catholic schools is Catholic Schools Week. But this is the week. This is the week when all the students and the faculty and staff are showing their appreciation for their pastors, for their teachers, for the parents, for the benefactors, for all the people who support the schools. And at the same time, I mean, the governor had a great proclamation signing on Monday. Tomorrow, the Archbishop, this is going to be new for us. The Archbishop is celebrating Mass tomorrow morning, and we're hoping as many of the students, faculty, and staff will participate virtually. But he'll be saying the Mass at Father Duenas, but it'll be live streamed to all the schools. And for any of the students who are not in school because of scheduling tomorrow, they'll be able to participate as well. So it's pretty exciting. I mean, it's a spiritual week for us, but really it's an acknowledgement that a lot of people make a difference in the lives of the students in the Catholic schools. And that's part of what Catholic schools are all about.
Thanks, Juan.
Thank you.
We should check in with you also weekly.
Yeah, Juan, we'll get you on
Okay,
weekly. Got it.
thanks.
Okay, thanks. Bye.